Considering Ed Sheeran is one of the biggest musicians on the planet, the amount of haters he has is extremely low. The world's favourite ginger is unique because he doesn't really have one set fan base. You'll find high school kids that plays music just as much as an 80-year-old woman, and one genre in particular that highly respects him is hip-hop.
Are you ever surprised how many hip-hop artists love you and love your work? I think it was Rod Wave that came up with one of your numbers. I seen you with Pat Poof the other night.
Yeah.
Did that ever surprise you?
I'm not accepted by my genre. I thought it was quite telling that my album came out and the only people that emailed me in depth about liking it were like Dave and Stormzy, and my peers largely, I feel, in the pop scene often don't want me to succeed.
The hip-hop/rap community, including the biggest artists in the world, keep Ed Sheeran's name in the highest of praises, not just in the countless collaborations he's done, but away from music too, to the point where Eminem asked him to perform alongside him when M got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's pretty fascinating how much hip-hop respects Ed Sheeran, but once you know the story, it's not surprising. Since his entrance into the music scene, Ed Sheeran has been a hip-hop head. Ed was born in Halifax, West Yorkshire, but grew up in Framlingham, a tiny English town that couldn't be further from the London rap scene, or any rap scene for that matter. His upbringing wasn't glamorous, no industry connections or music exec parents, just an old guitar, a cheap microphone, and an obsession with music. As a kid, Ed was obsessed with writing and wordplay. He'd memorize Eminem verses and try to recreate them, not just because he liked the sound, but because of how technical they were. He once said that learning Eminem's lyrics as a kid basically cured his stutter, and that's when rap became part of his DNA.
I was going through all sorts of speech therapy, and when I was 9, my uncle bought me the Marshall Mathers LP, and he just said to my dad, "This guy's the next Bob Dylan, you got to let him listen." My dad didn't really clock it, you know, he was just like, okay, Edward's going to go and listen to that. And by learning that record and rapping it back to back to back to back, it cured my stutter, and I stopped, you know, talking like that.
While most kids his age were bumping pop music, Ed was dissecting bars. He loved storytelling, that mix of rhythm and emotion that lived inside hip-hop. It was that obsession that led him at 16 to pick up a loop pedal and start experimenting with layering vocals, melodies, and even rap verses. Long before anyone saw him as this pop guy, he moved to London in 2008 to pursue his music career, and over the next few years, he performed anywhere he could. Pubs, clubs, the side of the street, wherever he could get eyes on him, he would be singing away with his guitar. He started to book some small gigs, but everything started to fall into place when he met Jamal Edwards. In 2010, the UK underground music scene was thriving. Grime, UK rap and R&B acts were finding new homes online, especially on Jamal Edwards' platform, SBTV. SBTV was a platform helping young British artists break through in the 2010s, and when Jamal saw Ed, he knew he needed to feature. When Jamal first filmed Ed performing You Need Me, I Don't Need You, it wasn't just another upload, it was a culture shock. A white ginger dude with a guitar, spitting fast, intricate, grime-influenced flows, switching from soulful choruses to bar-heavy verses in one breath. In the comments, people weren't laughing, they were impressed. And in a culture that values authenticity above all else, Ed Sheeran had earned his respect organically. He didn't pretend to be something he wasn't, he was just himself, but with rhythm, wordplay, and grit. That SBTV performance became a time capsule, the moment Ed Sheeran crossed into hip-hop's world and never fully left, and his relationship with Jamal Edwards went deeper than one video.
I was sort of like this struggling up-and-coming musician wanting anyone to take me seriously, and no one was taking me seriously because I was like fat, like scraggly ginger hair, I had a tiny guitar and I used to rap and beatbox, and everyone kind of saw me as a joke. And Jamal put me on his channel on YouTube, which at the time was like the coolest channel to be on, and I was living at his at the time. With the first day we met, I didn't have anywhere to live and I just moved in at his, and I probably did like 20 videos for him that year of like different songs and stuff, and then it blew up and we sort of just carried that on.
After that SBTV performance, things didn't just magically take off. Ed wasn't suddenly on the charts or headlining shows. He was still sleeping on friends' sofas, taking 20 quid gigs and hustling his way through open mic nights. But what did change was who started noticing him. The grime scene had eyes everywhere, from pirate radio freestyles to YouTube sessions, and Ed's performance started circulating in those circles. Grime, for anyone who doesn't know, is a style of rap usually around 140 beats per minute, quite aggressive, less about the melodies and more about the delivery of the lyrics. And most UK rappers started as grime MCs. Skepta, Stormzy, Wiley and Devlin, one of the first MCs Ed met in London.
They call me Young Gun like I was a pistol in the primary. Speaking cold's no irony. Irony is that I don't have a beautiful mind at all. I'm not a dinosaur, it's no time to pause. And we're coming up. I'm a young gun like a brand new weapon, and I'll stand there and tell them what I reckon.
Grime was territorial back then. Outsiders weren't always welcomed in, especially posh looking white singers from Suffolk. But Ed wasn't trying to take from the culture, he was contributing to it. And when you approach with respect, you get respect back. So people were like, wait, this guy's hard. And he began to link up with more MCs in the UK grime scene. He'd go to their sessions, play hooks, write choruses, even spit verses. He'd show up to studio blocks with nothing but his guitar and a cheap bottle of rum, record until morning, and then crash on the studio sofa. So although Ed's a pop star now, his early days were far different to his competition in the present day. In early 2011, Ed dropped what's still one of the most important projects in his entire catalogue, the No. 5 Collaborations project. At the time, he was still an independent artist, and the EP was a thank you letter to the scene that had taken him in. It had 0 pop stars featured, only rappers, straight bars and straight stories. He handled the production himself, wrote every hook, and gave every guest space to shine. You had Getz on Drown Me Out, P Money on Family, Wiley on You, JME on Radio, Devlin on Lately. To give you a bit more understanding, those MCs, plus all the others that were featured on that project, 15 years on, are still in the conversation as some of the greatest UK rappers of all time. So having Getz, Wiley, JME, Devlin all on your debut project is like the American equivalent of having Jay-Z, Kanye West, Eminem all on your debut project. You know, we're talking legends of the scene, all on one tape. And the thing is, Ed wasn't just a feature artist there, he held his own. He didn't look out of place because his pen game matched the weight of whoever was beside him. You could tell he'd spent years studying the structure of bars, the rhythm, the spacing, the way a punchline lands, all the little details that rappers live by. That project circulated like wildfire through the UK. People couldn't believe it. This ginger acoustic fella made one of the hardest UK rap tapes of the year. Every rapper respected it because Ed wasn't pandering or faking. He was just being Ed, but through the lens of hip-hop storytelling. And after that, everything changed. That same year, he'd get a co-sign from Elton John, start working with Atlantic Records, and finally have the resources to build a proper debut album. But even with all that new attention, Ed never left the people who helped him get there. He'd still show up at grime events, still shout out Jamal Edwards, still feature on underground remixes just for fun. Because that's the difference between respect and attention. Attention fades, but respect sticks. And in 2011, before he'd ever had a #1 hit, Ed Sheeran had already earned something way harder to get: respect. When he released his first album, Plus, later that year, it was technically a pop album, but it felt like a mixtape. A lot of those songs were the same ones he'd been performing on SBTV and at open mics, only now the world was finally hearing them. Tracks like You Need Me, I Don't Need You still carried that rap heavy energy with fast flows and sharp wordplay. It was Ed proving that even with a guitar, he could spit with the same hunger as the MCs he'd come up around. And by the time he dropped Multiply and Divide, he wasn't just a pop star, he was one of the biggest on the planet. But this is what separated Ed from a lot of crossover artists. There's so many cases of pop stars collaborating with rappers on songs, but it can be difficult sometimes to see what the intentions are behind it. Like, is this pop star really a fan of the rapper, or are they both just doing it to make a hit and introduce each other's audiences to the other artist? Either way, there's nothing wrong with it, but Ed Sheeran doesn't use hip-hop for credibility, he came through it. So when he brought out Stormzy as a surprise guest at the Brit Awards in 2017, it didn't feel forced, it just felt natural.
Do you know what's wonderful now is in the sort of 90s, early 2000s, like US hip-hop culture was English hip-hop culture, and people would dress and make music and sometimes even rap in the same accent. But now our #1 music genre in England now is British rap, British grime, British drill, British R&B.
If you're enjoying the video so far, please make sure you go down and leave it a like. I forget to say it in all my videos. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel to see videos just like this every week. In 2019, he dropped the follow-up album to the number 5 collaborations project with, you guessed it, number 6. This album featured much bigger artists like Bruno Mars and Justin Bieber, but also much bigger rappers, and the combination of the two meant that there were collaborations on this album that you'd never usually get, like track 8, Feels, which featured American rapper Young Thug and UK rapper J Hus, or track 11, Nothing on You, featuring Argentinian rapper Paulo Londra and UK rapper Dave. The other features on the album showed just how much hip-hop really respects Ed, with features from Travis Scott, Eminem, 50 Cent, Meek Mill and more, but the track that took off in the UK was Take Me Back to London. Stormzy and Ed, who were both good friends for years and both raised by the culture Jamal Edwards built, bounced off each other perfectly. Stormzy's big energy countered with Ed's melodies made it a hit. It felt natural. In fact, they were so hell-bent on keeping it true to the UK that they turned down a Jay-Z feature on the song, instead keeping it true to the UK for a song based on London, and even having a remix with Manchester rapper H and Birmingham rapper JK. The Take Me Back to London remix showcased 3 completely different styles of rap from 3 major cities in the UK, and at the centre of it all was Ed. As the 2020s rolled in, it became clear that Ed's ties to hip-hop weren't nostalgia or convenience. He was still tapped in. On the rap side, he linked up with UK artists like Central C, Tion Wayne, Potter Paper and D-Block Europe. In fact, Ed Sheeran, one of the biggest pop stars ever, has collaborated with pretty much every big UK rapper. On the Afrobeat side, he hopped on Fireboy's Peru remix, delivering one of the most repeated songs of that year.
When I say understanding the culture, I don't feel like I'm necessarily a huge part of it, but I definitely understand it way more than
you relate to it.
Yeah, and especially UK culture, because like that's what I grew up with and that's what I've always been plugged into.
Ed Sheeran's relationship with hip-hop isn't about genre, it's about energy. Hip-hop likes people who work harder than everyone else. They like people who stay authentic. They like people who respect the craft. And they like people who don't switch up when they get famous. And Ed Sheeran checks all of those boxes. He never moved like a chart-topping star. He moved like an independent rapper who just so happened to have a guitar. He came from freestyles and open mics, not talent shows. And from sleeping on sofas, not some industry plant journey. And he came from SBTV, the same platform that gave the UK some of the greatest rappers of all time. So yeah, hip-hop loves Ed Sheeran, not because he tries to fit in, but because he showed up early, earned respect honestly, and never let the fame change the part of him that hip-hop recognized from day one.